everyone. Welcome to week 5 of the Reddit League. My name is Zotomo, and I am joined, as always, by Calamity.
Hello.
And our special guest this week is MTheBassman. So right now is Calamity's rival at the top of the Division 2 tables. We'll see how their matchup is going this week. How are you doing?
Hi. Yeah, I'm doing great. Really.
Happy to have you here for Botswana, a
Yeah.
really
Thank you for having
interesting
me.
map. No problem. Thank you for coming. So let's jump right into this and take a look at the Division 1 results for Botswana, as I mentioned. And yeah, Calamity, not too bad. Actually, some pretty decent scores given the map.
Yeah, the Division One seed I think wasn't too bad. You got another great performance from Boxer, of course, getting very close to the 25k. No one actually did get a perfect score in Botswana, which isn't surprising, but you never know with some of these players. Maybe even in a map like Botswana, they can get it, but not here. Still, only 5 points away. Great score. Although kind of with Boxer and Raidman, you almost expect it at this point. Raidman up there as well with the second best score of the week. But Orpheus again with a very good score too. He's been keeping his form up all season so far, and he looks really dangerous. Not quite there with Raidman, about 50 points behind in that matchup, but he looks pretty set for the playoffs. And in a best of one in the semifinals, who knows what will happen there. Other than that, yeah, Blinky picks up his first win in his by far worst performance so far. Not a good game from him, but Simi just keeps going 0-5 by now. Let's see if he can make the 0-9 happen. Well, on the world map next week, maybe not, but we'll see. And yeah, Chicago with a very important win as well against Ice in sort of the relegation fights.
For that one, yeah, very nice. Yeah, MTheBassman, a couple poor scores here by a few players, but it is Botswana, nothing to expect. And I'm sure Simi is not really practicing a whole lot right now.
Yeah, I played the seed, and one of them was in one of those very rural, dense, bushy, dry areas. So you either knew where it was or not, which kind of reflects the scores, I guess. Yeah, Simi, I've read also on the Discord and such that she's just not motivated to play at all. So, yeah, you could kind of expect this from him, I guess. Happy for Blinky that he finally won. Orpheus, I was also quite surprised with, like Calamity said. I was expecting him to, I know he's good, but below the likes of like Box and Raven, but he's really keeping up the pace well. And I'm happy my Dutch companion, Mr. Blue, got a important win again.
Very nice. Well, let's take a look at how this table is shaping up. I think we can say that we're over the hump of the halfway point for Division 1, 4, and 5 after this week. Boxa does move to the top of the table, replacing Raidman, but Orpheus, Blinky, and Verdoc, the French trio, all right behind them. Mr. Blue not having a season to really think too much about, sitting there way down in 6th. And with Simi pretty much going to be occupying the last place throughout the rest of the season, Calamity, that fight for 9th is going to be up for grabs. And Ice, unfortunately, with his loss, drops into that spot this week.
Yeah, it's more so a fight for 7th for 8th. 9th, being 9th is pretty easy. You just got to, lose. But yeah, the top 3 is still unbeaten. Boxer, Raidman, Orpheus, as we said. But you also see there how important the win for Mr. Blue is against Verdoc. Because if Verdoc had won, you'd have a pretty large gap between 5th and 6th, between the upper and the lower half of the table. But with this, Mr. Blue is still keeping up, only 1 point behind the top 4, and he's still got a good chance to make it back into the playoffs.
Yeah, MTheBassman, anything you notice here in this table after 5 weeks?
I mean, like I said again, Orpheus in third is quite impressive to me. Blinky, it's very impressive how he only had 1 win and it still is in 4th. Yeah, I guess it's kind of expected. Like I expected, maybe swap Mr. Blue with Orpheus, and then I would have maybe been something I expected at the start of the season. Otherwise, yeah, I think the bottom 4 are also just going to be the ones that really have to watch out, personally.
Yeah, 3-point gap doesn't seem like a lot, but with the fact that the upper part of the table keeps winning, the odds of them being able to swap places with any of them is going to be pretty tough. You guys have been kind of hating on Orpheus a bit. He did finish 5th last season, of course, quite a few points off of 4th, but he's sitting just slightly better than he was last season. So not doing too bad for himself. I think what really happened here is we've got a couple new tough competitors, maybe Calamity, who are kind of evening things out a bit, giving him a chance to bump up a little bit in the standings, perhaps.
I don't think any of what you just said was very coherent. But yeah, he was 5th last season, but also, yeah, we got a few newcomers this season who we were all expecting to do very well, in Blinky, for example. And yeah, it's not just the position that's important, it's also the manner with which he's playing his matches, the scores he's putting up. And while he was 5th last season, his total score was only the 8th best of the division.
I see. Well, interesting. Well, let's see what matchups they have next week. We're headed over to a world map, and we've got a couple very interesting matchups here. Chicago and Simi towards the bottom there, Calamity. Might already know how that one goes, but a very important matchup that might decide some playoff positions here, Mr. Blue and Boxa.
Yeah, you say that, but I don't actually think, like, out of any map possible, I think Chicago had the chosen, well, he's not chosen it, but he got assigned the worst map possible to play Simi, just a normal world map. And if anywhere, it's probably here where Simi's got a chance to at least get a draw of Chicago. He failed on Lakes of the World, I think, by like 30 points to get a draw. Yeah, Blinky Raidman is, in my opinion, the most interesting match here. Totally possible to see a 25k from both here. And yeah, Mr. Blue and Boxer as well. Same could happen here. Mr. Blue's finally picked up a good win last week and had a good performance there. More to his usual standards rather than some of the performances he's had at the start of the season. So definitely he could at least challenge Boxer to a draw as well. I think Ice almost has his last chance here to really fight for the 7th and 8th spot, because I don't quite remember who he's playing next week, but I know in the last 2 weeks he's playing Raidman and Boxer. So it's not a nice end of the season for him. I think he might be playing Simi next week, so that's another chance where some points potentially, but yeah, he really needs to start picking up points in these 2 weeks rather than going to the last 2 matches against the top 2. And yeah, Orpheus against Bulgur, just from what we've seen so far, should be in Orpheus' favor. But yeah, you never know. Bulgur is not played badly or anything, and he needs those points as well.
Definitely, yeah. In the basement, any of these matchups stand out to you that you're looking forward to?
I honestly think these are all very interesting. For example, Wordog, we all know how good he is at world maps. So if he could win this one, then he might actually have a really good chance to maybe sneak into the playoffs. And well, Blinky Raidman, also of course a good match. I mean, on a world map, it's always really fun to see what will happen. So yeah, I think this could be a very decisive week in terms of how who's going to end in top 4 and who is going to be in the bottom 4. Because Bulgur, for example, or Chicago, if they get a win, they have maybe an even better chance to stay up. So I think for a lot of players, this is a crucial one.
Yeah, it's a world map. We had a world map with Lakes of the World in week 3. We had 4 perfect games and a couple really close ones that almost were perfect. How many do you think we're going to get in this one, Calamity?
It really depends on the seeds, as always. I think it's not unrealistic to see as many as we've seen in week 3, even though we don't have the help of dams lakes as a feature. I'm still getting confused with those two. But yeah, if you've got an easy seed, like we saw in the Lakes of the World and in Division 4, it's not unrealistic to see like 5, 6 aces or like perfect games in one division. And yeah, it just depends a bit on the seed and how the players are doing on their day.
Yeah, so definitely looking forward to some of those perfect games in the world map for Division 1. Well, let's take a look at how Division 2 faced off in Botswana. And Bassman, it wasn't exactly a week to remember for you or Calamity, both of you losing your matchups in this one.
Yeah, it was pretty unlucky, to be honest, because in 4 rounds I got as close as I kind of could, but in one round I just didn't have enough information. I had to take a bit of a gamble, and that gamble didn't really work out well. Plus, Shumi having a pretty good score on its own. Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but I don't think it was really my fault too much.
Mhm.
So I'm not gonna really dwell on that too much. I'm still confident in my skills, and a loss might put off the pressure a little bit because at the start I might have been called a promotion favorite. But my goal initially is staying up, and if I make the playoffs, then that's always nice. But it's nice to take the pressure off. And otherwise, in the results, yeah, losing to Tom Paula is pretty possible. And otherwise, yeah, I was quite surprised that Pluki drew with Patriots. That was kind of a surprise to me. Guelo is at keeping up his great form, and Tescotac doing also surprisingly well, which we haven't really seen a lot this season so far. And
Yeah.
Clyde, of course, very good score.
Yeah, Calamity. Besides your loss, any of these results kind of stand out to you?
Yeah, there's a couple there. Of course, Bassman losing, but as he said, a bit unlucky in that one. But Shumi with a good score there. I messaged Toll about his video because we're going to cast it recently, and he said, can't wait to see you discover how lucky I was, so I'm not looking forward to casting that one. But yeah, losing against Toll was kind of within my expectations. I just wanted to get a bonus point, and it was a bit closer than I had hoped at the end there because I didn't expect Teskatak to get such a good score, but thankfully Pluki not doing too well, so that got me into the green again, and I got my bonus point that I wanted. Yeah, Teskatak, of course, with a great result there. Max not putting up much of a fight there, but with 1,800 points between them, could just be one round where he didn't find it. Yeah, as Bassman already said, Guelo is it continuing to win games, continuing to be at the top there against Schludi, who's a good opponent, so always good to get the points against the stronger opponents. And yeah, Pluki only a draw against Patriots. That could really cost him in the race for promotion.
Definitely. Well, let's take a look at that table. And with the wins, Guelo, Wizard, and Tom Paula moved to the top of the table, kicking down Calamity and MTheBassman for the first time in the season. For that, other than that, not a whole lot of movement at the bottom of the table. Shumi, despite his victory, is still stuck in 8th place, and everybody below not being able to really move too much from that. So the top shuffles, but other than that, it all stays the same. Basement.
Yeah, I think you can kind of start to see some sort of disparity here in the table that the top 8. I mean, Shumi's a bit of a gamble at this point, but definitely the top 7 are all, in my opinion, contention for promotion. So even if this, like this top 4, I'm not expecting it to stay the same maybe these coming weeks. The Quail Wizard, yeah, he had a lot of trouble last season. Apparently, he didn't have a lot of time to practice, so that just goes to show how much practice can actually add on to, to your performances. Me and Forth, I'm quite content with that, honestly. Just need to gather points here and there. That would be fine. But yeah, honestly, it's all for grabs at this point.
Yeah, Division 2 with 12 players isn't quite to the midway point, Calamity, so you still have a little bit of ways to go. But it does seem that the top is separating a little bit, even if the points don't quite reflect that.
Yeah, we're essentially at the midway point between this and the next week. And yeah, it's still incredibly close, of course. Only 4 points between Guelo in first and Schludi down in 7th. And yeah, as Bassman said, Shumi is sort of a bit in the middle there between the upper group of players and the lower group of players. But his game next week will be really important for that, and we'll see that in a bit. But yeah, apart from that, I think, as Baseman said, anything could really still happen here within, I would say the top 8 currently still have a chance to fight for promotion. The further down we go, Max, Patriots, Test Attack, and Pastek, I think they're out of the race for promotion. It would take some real surprise results. I think at this point, they'd have to win everything, every single match remaining, and then they'd have to hope that the other results go their way. Otherwise, I don't see it. And yeah, I just don't see that happening either. They've had some good performances here and there, but neither of them have really shown anything where I just go, okay, they've been very unlucky this season or anything. Which you can also tell by the fact that none of them have actually gotten a bonus point when losing yet, which just shows that most of the time they've been in the lower half of the scores, and any wins they've gotten have just been because their opponent did worse than them.
With that, let's take a look at who they'll be facing off with in their world map next week. And we've got quite the matchup because we have our 2 commentators here going up against each other. Besides that, Max definitely in a must win if he wants to even try to think about getting out that bottom 4 MTheBassman.
Yeah, we got our to win or to lose derby, which is our French league team, along with Tom, Paul, and Box and Mr. Blue. But yeah, definitely for both of us, a very important and interesting game, because I think I've quite improved on world maps since joining the league, in my opinion. And well, not sure how Calamity was 2 seasons ago on world maps generally, but yeah, that could definitely be interesting. Tall and Clyde, also a very important game for promotion, especially with Clyde, kind of needing some more wins. Again, I mean, he won last week. Before that, he lost twice. So if he can get another win, that would maybe get up his confidence quite a bit. And another promotion clash with Schluty and Pluki. Yeah, for most players, I would also say this is a do or die game, considering it's either 2 promotion contenders facing against each other or relegation contenders facing against each other. So yeah, another big week this division as well.
Definitely. Calamity, you think Pashte Hashe can pick up a win here against Patriots, his first one? I'll say his name right eventually.
I doubt that, but keep trying. Yeah.
Pashte Hashe?
Pastek Hashe.
Pastek Hashe.
Pastek. That's right. It's a hard Q.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely possible. But I think on a world map up here in the higher divisions, it's kind of always difficult to tell because all of these players are capable of getting like at least into a draw range with anyone else. So it kind of just depends on whether there's any round you have problems with. And yeah, I think Baseman and me have both improved a lot since our matchup that I won, just to mention that, 2 seasons ago in Division 3 on a world map. But yeah, it could be a very interesting matchup. Of course, very important for both of us. The same goes, pretty much the same implications as well for, as we said, Toll and Clyde, as well as Schluty and Pluki, who are all kind of facing off against direct opponents in that promotion fight. Those are always the most important games where you can not only get points yourself, but also take points away from your opponent. Apart from that, I think technically, if you look at the positions in the table, the only clear-cut match of the week here is Guelo against Test Attack. But Test Attack got a better score than Guelo in Botswana, so even here, you never really know. And yeah, world map is not something you can practice really, especially not a map like this. So anything could happen here. Yeah, I think the most important game almost this week, though, is Shumi against Max. Because if Shumi wins, that puts him back into that fight for promotion and kind of makes it a top 8. Whereas if he loses, I think both of them are pretty much almost out of contention. It brings Max a bit closer again and helps him in the relegation battle. But I think at that point, Shumi might be a bit too far behind to seriously be a contender for promotion. It might still happen. He's not totally out of it. But it might be a lot harder for him.
I see. Well, let's move on then to Division 3 and their results in Botswana. And yeah, the scores kind of all over the place here, Calamity. A couple really, really nice scores towards the top 24 nines, but then a couple under 20,000s as well, probably having to do with there being one round perhaps that was just a little bit tricky for everybody to find.
Yeah, this is not the round or not the results you want to see if you're Polyboss / Ortbocker here. You got a good score yourself, 24.5. Lost to Seppo, and then Freckles wins while getting 4,000 points less than you. So that's a big hit for him in his promotion race. Great score from Seppo, of course, 24,908. Highest score of the division, which helps him out massively. WTF with a small win against Closed. A second closest loss of the week, I think. Bulgur was the closest one. I forgot to mention that in Division 1. So Closed again, just about losing his game. He's not having a very lucky season for sure. Paulinho dropping the ball a bit against LCN was always going to be difficult against the score of 24-8, but not even close to a bonus point here either, which hurts him in a promotion race. And yeah, Radox, Botswana, pinpointing, I was never going to go well, and Hugo with 24.6, just not beatable for Radox here. But I think it was enough. He might just be sixth there for a bonus point.
Definitely very nice. MTheBassman, any thoughts on these Division 3 matchups here?
Yeah, like as Calamity mentioned, Seppo with that score is pretty insane. I mean, a lot of the times he doesn't really have an amazing score, but out of nowhere he just has a game like that. It's a very important win for him. And also very happy for Hugo, who has really struggled for a bit also in the last season and seems to have picked up the pace a little bit again. Unfortunately against Radox, which is also a player I quite like. Yeah, Close. Not sure what's going on with him. He was, I think, fourth or third in the last season, but he just didn't really have. He doesn't really have a lot of luck, and Paulinho seems to lose a lot of steam as well. I think he had a really good start, but that score was, I don't know. And Freckles underperformed, but still won, and a win is a win. So he keeps up his unbeaten streak.
I definitely would be very happy about that, and thank Benica for that result that's slightly worse than his own, that keeps him at the top of the table. As we take a look at that now, the top three staying the same, 4th, 5th, and 6th all moving up, while 7th through 10th dropping down. Despite his win, Seppo still remains at the bottom, but Calamity, only 3 points separating 11th from 4th here.
Yeah, Seppo's win definitely made the whole thing a lot closer again. And quite a few players actually who were a bit down there got some wins this week. A great week for everyone on the American continent right there. LCN, Barry, and Hugo all winning their games and jumping up the table, leapfrogging 4 other people. And yeah, everything's kind of possible here still from 4th to 11th. I kind of said last week that I thought Paulinho would be actually more likely than WTF to fight for that 3rd spot. But with the bad performance this week, I think at this point, unlikely to happen. I mean, there's still 6 weeks to go, so we're far from done at this point. The only thing I think that's quite clear at this stage is that out of the top 3 right now, Freckles, Polyboss, and WTF, I'm gonna say you're gonna see at least 2 of them in the top 4 at the end of the season.
Very nice. And MTheBassman.
I think Freckles and Ortbok are pretty likely to stay around that area, but I think 3rd to even 9th could, still getting that promotion spot. It's all very tight in that mid-table, and like a player like Close, for example, he definitely has the potential to win his next 2 games, and then he could be in 3rd for all we know. So quite unpredictable to know how it goes, but that makes it all the more exciting, I guess.
Very nice. Well, let's take a look at the fixtures for them on the improved world, and it's sort of a top against bottom, except Calamity, for the really interesting matchup of Freckles and Ordbaka, the top two going at it here.
Yeah, top of the table clash. And I think if Freckles manages to win that one, which he definitely could on a world map, I think you can almost call it there and say, all right, that's it, season over. Yeah, I do favor Freckles here a bit, but yeah, for Ordbaka, it would be really important to at least take some points off Freckles, maybe make sure that you're at least in draw range to kind of keep it going up there. For the other matches, yeah, as you said, a lot of top against bottom. The thing is just with how this table is looking, you can't really say top against bottom because like 4th and 11th are 3 points apart, so it's not much of a difference there. Yeah, pretty important games for a lot of these people. Maybe the one where you could say that's the most clear, I guess, is WTF against Seppo, where WTF should be winning this game. Otherwise, that's some important points lost there that he'll probably not be able to gain back as easily. Radux with a bye week there against Ferret, he'll take that after 3 losses in a row. Just have a casual gander around the world map, just play casually, maybe get 24 something to build confidence up a bit in a match that doesn't have any pressure. And yeah, the other matches all very important as well, as they're all pretty close together in the table.
Yeah, MTheBassman, do you think Radux would have preferred to have his bye week in a different map besides a world map, or he could take where he can get it?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I think he might have preferred if he would have gone that bye week in a country that he might not be as good as, like Botswana. But I think either way, he will take the 3 points, which will really help him. Otherwise, I'm also quite excited to see how Barry against Paulinho is going to go. Because I kind of had high expectations of Barry before the season, but he hasn't put up the best scores. So this is kind of interesting to see if one of these players can get back in form. And of course, as mentioned, Freckles or Boca, big game. Hugo enclosed. With a win, they could really get into those higher mid-table places and gain some confidence. So yeah, I'm repeating myself, but again, a really crucial week for all of these players.
Yeah, we could definitely see it stay tight all the way through the table, or we could see a few more players start to separate themselves from the pack there. Well, moving on to our split divisions with Division 4A and their results, and overall pretty nice scores in the basement, except for Pashtetli and Hidekmi, who probably will just want to move on from Botswana.
Yeah, they didn't have the best of weeks. I think Nakir is very happy with that win because he's really been struggling this season so far. Yeah, Pashtetli was already kind of expected he was going to be in relegation danger, but yeah, this with that score difference added up, it could become very scary for him. Yeah, good win for Axel, which keeps him top of the table. And Porksticks also with a very important win because he has had a bit of a hit or miss season, if I recall correctly. And yeah, as expected, Farabon doing well again.
Yeah, Calamity, another one where kind of some of the results went a little bit different than you might have expected, but keeping everything close and interesting at least.
Yeah, Nakro finally ended his free match losing streak there with the important win against Lunacy. And they've kind of had sort of opposite, actually not really opposite. They had similar seasons so far, actually, with both of them like starting well. I think for Lunacy it was 2 wins in a row. For Nakura, he at least won his first game. And since then, they've kind of both fallen off a bit. But Nakura ending that downward trend here. And I hope he can keep that momentum and get back up the table. Bit unfortunate for Neusel there, who had the 6th best score and therefore ended up without a bonus point, which he would have really needed, as we'll see in a bit on the table. Yeah, disappointing week for Pashtetli and Hedikmi, of course. For Pashtetli, probably wouldn't have got many more points anyway, considering for him he was so far behind, like you can't even put it down to 1 round that he might not have found. He must have not found 2 rounds. And at that point, like, you can have pretty much any map in the world, and you can't expect to get a win with that performance. And Porksteaks, yeah, he started off with losing the first 2 games like terribly and with big differences, and then just started going on a win streak. Because why not? 3rd win in a row. And yeah, heading me not with the greatest performance there as an opponent. So Porkstakes will be happy that just those 20,000 points were enough. And yeah, Faraban just and Hexal as well. They just both keep doing well, keep winning.
Yeah, exactly. Let's take a look at that table after this week. And yeah, Hexalt stays at the top, Noisel at the bottom. And this table seems like it's going to try to sort itself out by country. We've got the Swiss duo at the bottom there, and the French creeping towards the top, except for Hidekmi Inakiro, splitting those Americans there in the middle of the table. For this one. But yeah, MTheBassman, Hexalt doing pretty well. Firebomb, we know, pretty good. Both of them kind of expected to be towards the top. But yeah, not really a season going too well for kind of veterans like Nakiro and Noisel.
Yeah, with Hexal and Farbon, I think they both promoted from Division 5. So the fact that they're both at the top of Division 4 now is quite impressive to me. Yeah, Nakiro, I was also expecting him to be up there, but results have already gone his way. But as it's a bit of a smaller table with less players, one win could get them back up there as well. Maybe that win against Botswana might give him some confidence. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, I want to say that Hexal and Farbon will stay up there, but considering the points, anything could happen still. I do think that it's probably game over for Noisel with only 3 points.
Yeah, but Calamity, we still have a couple weeks to go. He's only 3 points off, 4 points off of a safe spot. He only has to pick up maybe 2-3 wins, but that might still be a tough task for him.
I think Bassman mostly meant for Noisel it's game over in regards to fighting for promotion or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of staying in the division, it's still very much possible. He's just gonna need to beat a couple of opponents in the next few weeks. He's got 4 weeks to go. If he can get, I would say, with 3 wins, I would say he's pretty much guaranteed to be, I wouldn't say guaranteed, but he's likely to be at least 7th. Well, let's say at most 7th. I don't think he'll actually get higher than that. But any less, I think with 2 wins, he'd have to hope that other results go in his favor. So let's just go for 3 wins and everything will be fine. Yeah, Hexal is pulling away a bit at the top there. Still unbeaten. It's actually quite interesting to see how Hexal is unbeaten and everyone else has lost at least twice so far in this division. Just looking at the win-draw-loss ratio there, I think Hedikmi's missing a loss there. That I just quickly noticed. Because he seems to have only played 4 games according to this stat.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very close between second in Faraban and Pastetli in 9th, 4 points. Anything could really happen there. You can kind of get a bit of a better picture here if you look at the aces, how these people have performed so far, which kind of makes me think Faraban is probably going to be fine, at least sort of staying in 2nd or 3rd. Behind that, I think it's going to be very interesting because I think both Porksticks and H-Town have had some bad performances this season. And I wouldn't have thought those two to be the ones fighting for 3rd place. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see, I don't know, Lunacy or Nakiro or Hedikmi come up there and challenge them for that 3rd spot.
See, yeah, Hidekmi actually has a draw in his win draw stat that we're missing there. Sorry about that. It'll be fixed now. There we go. The magic of editing. Wonderful. Well, let's take a look at their fixtures coming up this week in the world map. And yeah, a couple interesting ones to point out here. Hexal, top of the table, taking on H-Town in 4th, might be worth a mention. MTheBassman, but also Solar Sensei and Pastetli down towards the bottom might be an important factor in the relegation fight.
Yeah, that's going to be a real relegation cracker, in my opinion. I think Lunacy Porksticks could also be interesting because they're only like 1 point away from each other, and a win here could really maybe set the tone for the rest of the season for the one benefiting from that. Otherwise, yeah, I think after a win, Akira might be happy to have to face the bottom of the table to get away from that relegation spot. But of course, on a world map, I don't know how if Noisel is any good at world maps, but it there could always be surprises in there, so nothing is set in stone yet. But yeah, I think uh, definitely a lot of interesting matchups in here. Another French derby, which could also be crucial for both of them. With Farba and Headache Me, so yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Calamity, anything that stands out to you here?
Yeah, I think Lunacy against Pork Steaks illustrates very well how quickly things can change in Reddit League over the course of a couple of weeks. Because after week 2, Lunacy had 6 points, Pork Steaks had 0, and now just 3 weeks later, Pork Steaks is a point ahead of Lunacy. And I do still think, actually, now that I think about it, it is a world map after all, so I'm not quite as sure as I would have normally been on a country map about which this favors. Normally on a country map, I would have favored Lunacy, actually, but on a world
Mhm.
map, I think Pork Steaks can put up a great score as well. Yeah, H-Town against Hexalt, first against fourth, an interesting game as well. If Hexalt wins this one, I think he's pretty much secure at staying in the top 3 at least. Faraband against Headache Me, of course, favor Faraband there slightly, but yeah, it could be for Headache Me, it's an important match as well. If he beats Faraband, he instantly goes from 6th back into the range of maybe even 3rd. And yeah, of course, the 2 matchups actually there at the bottom, Solar Sensi against Pashetli and Nakiro against Noisel, will also be very important for the relegation battles. If Noisel loses this one, that might be like the worst week to lose a match in, because not only will his direct opponent for relegation get a win, also Solar Sensi and Pastetli, one of those at least, will pick up a few points, so that will throw him back quite far.
Definitely. Well, let's take a look at the other half of the Division 4 table here with Division 4B and their results. Yeah, some pretty rough scores. Again, it seems like a lot of these people struggled with the one round. I think round 5 was an absolute killer, but a couple of them managed to get it, which means that they do get wins here, Calamity, with Tyconicus and Pont Noob putting up over 24,000 points here, where everybody else is pretty much right at that 20,000 level.
Yeah, those two, the only ones with really good scores. Actually, quite funny how we could have seen like 3 or 4 draws in this. Well, 3 draws in this division if people had played other opponents. But none of them played each other, so we had no draws, and a lot of wins by like somewhere between 300 to like 600, 700 points. And yeah, still the Snick winning the match between the top 3 there against Diesel. Not with the scores you might have expected, but as Bassman I think said earlier once, like a win's a win. He'll take it, and that now puts him in a much better position. Jake a bit unfortunate, they're losing just 600 points to Soviets. And you losing against Tyconicus makes the table a lot closer as well. Edward gets his 3rd bonus point this season. I think he's running for the lead there in that category. And yeah, Soviet and Wakelock were got some very important wins this week to fight against relegation.
Definitely. MTheBassman.
Yeah, Steal This Nick is I think is grinding out a lot of close wins here, which kind of reminds me in football of luck of the champion, where usually the champion has a lot of close wins as well, where they maybe didn't play the best, but still just got those important wins. I think that kind of applies to Steal This Nick here. He's yeah, like I said again, a win is a win against another promotion contender, no less. So he's probably very happy about that. And yeah, like Calamity said, Wakelock had a very important win there. Zoto, you losing, it might put you a bit away from promotion, but anything could still happen. Tyconicus is a good player still, so this can happen. And otherwise, yeah, Soviet Spy also really had to win that. I was expecting Jake to win that one personally, but Oh well.
Yeah, not much you can do about it now, right? Yeah, I definitely feel like it's a little bit harsh. It was a pretty much one round that really killed a lot of people, and it seems like those who had extensions slash better internet were the ones who did better in this one. But you take your lumps where you have to. Let's take
Not
a look at that
salty at
table
all.
then. Not salty at all. We're moving on. So yeah, but despite these interesting results, Calamity, the table top five stay the same. There is a bit of shuffling towards the bottom, but again, that it stays very close, but not a whole lot of movement.
Yeah, the top five stay the same positionally, but there's actually some pretty big changes in the point differences here this week, as Lyconicus and Steelisnick with 15 points are now 4 ahead of Diesel, and it almost looks like they're now going to fight it out between the two of them to see who will get that automatic promotion spot. Yeah, Diesel will need to make sure that this week was an exception and that he can now go back to winning ways. He's still in a pretty good position, 4 points ahead of the rest of the pack. But he can't afford more than one more loss if he still wants to be in a good position to get that third spot at least and keep his chances at promotion going. Apart from that, we actually said it, Baseman said it earlier, Steal the Snick won a lot of close games. I looked it up in the meantime, and Steal the Snick actually has a lower total score than Edward in ninth. So that is very interesting there. Edward, yeah, with his 3 bonus points, he's in an all right position. Got a bit unlucky so far this season. He's still going relatively well. He's that's always the unfortunate part. Like, the bonus points help you a bit, but it still indicates that you played against someone with a fantastic score, and so it doesn't help your score difference for any sort of tiebreakers. Yeah, 4th to 9th, 1 point apart. Anything can happen in a relegation fight. Fierce is not in a great situation right now, but you can see it again there with his aces, with the second most of the division, that he's not playing badly. He just needs to maybe have a bit more luck on his side, and he can quite quickly get out of that relegation spot as well.
Definitely with that. MTheBassman, anything about this table that will kind of stand out to you here?
Well, yeah, this one has a lot of disparity as well, with the Lyconicus and Steel the Snake kind of running away with Diesel a bit in no man's land, I guess. And yeah, like, one win for Theos could theoretically put him right back in their mid-table. So good news for the relegation people in the relegation spots. The moment 1 week could get you up there very quickly. So definitely nothing is set in stone yet. Yeah, honestly couldn't really predict how this is gonna go, other than that the top 3 will likely remain the same, I think.
I see. Well, let's see exactly who they will be facing off to try to keep those spots there. Yeah, Diesel and Jay Lyons, Calamity, probably one of the matchup for the week here, but also a very important matchup for Theos down at the bottom. A good chance to pick up a win against Soviet.
Yeah, I'd also point to Punt Noob against Steal the Snick, which could be quite interesting as well. As we've said, Steal the Snick not with the most like amazing performances so far, so I could definitely see if Punt Noob could take some points off of him, especially after his great performance in Botswana. I forgot to mention earlier that kind of you and Jake lost a bit of a chance there last week. It didn't cost you too much in the table in regards to the relegation zone, but you had the chance there to catch up with Diesel and fight for that third spot, but neither of you took it. So Diesel at this point, if he gets a win against Jake, and if you kind of don't get a win against Edward, Diesel could almost be clear from the followers at this stage next week. So that's definitely probably one of the more important games for Diesel this season. Yeah, Tyconicus should win against Wakelok. And Soviet against Fios, definitely important in the relegation fights. And I do favor Soviet there, but he's not really convinced me this season so far. So we may see Fios pull out a win there as well.
Yeah, Calamity, do you think that's not Calamity? MTheBassman, do you think that Steal the Snick's luck is going to hold out for him against Spoon Noob on this world map?
I find it quite hard to say, because I don't really know how both are usually at world maps. But I mean, if Steel's also wins this one, then he can maybe afford to lose 1 or 2 there, as long as he maybe wins this game, because I think after that there will only be 3 more games. So, and yeah, Diesel could definitely run away with it if he wins against Jake Lyons, but I wouldn't be super sure if Diesel's favored for that. I think Jake could really surprise there as well. And yeah, Theos, I do still think he can stay up, but he would really have to win this game, because it's also against a player who's around those relegation spots. So yeah, I think again this week is going to be very important for a lot of these players here.
Nice. Well, let's move over to our last division, Division 5A, and their results in Botswana. And scores really kind of all over the place here. GRH probably not proud of his one in the basement, but some also very decent scores, a couple of 23s and almost a perfect score from Herr Hinami here.
Yeah, I mean, for Botswana standards, that's actually a really good score from here. Jameen. Kiribati, or Kiribati, I'm not sure how I pronounced that name. Yeah, I thought he had a good start, but he seems to have lost a bit of steam. And yeah, Oli, really good score from him as well, and he very nice opportunity to increase that score difference for him. Yeah, otherwise, I don't really know these players enough to really have a lot of things to say about it. But yeah, I mean, could go either way in the next few games. But yeah.
Definitely. Calamity, anything that's noteworthy from a stats perspective here?
Let me actually, I was about to check up on something and then I forgot while you were talking, but okay. Kiribati is, because it looks like with 19,998, it's kind of the typical like score you get when you have like one massive drop in one round and everything else was pretty much perfect. He had a very bad round, but he also dropped about 400 points in a different round, so he wouldn't have had a chance to win against Teyemine anyway, who did actually get the highest score in the whole seed, so not only even in his division, but out of anyone who played this seed, and certainly a lot of people did. So that's a fantastic performance from him. Yeah, Kiribati there, he's kind of been up and down a bit over the course of the season. Had some great performances, had some pretty bad ones, which is why I've said multiple times I don't think he's like my favorite in the promotion race, but he can still fight for maybe a spot in the playoffs. Geoguessr with a very important win against Niels there to keep him in the running for at least saving himself from the relegation fight as well. Other than that, not many surprises. Ollie and Seb winning against the people who were sort of in those relegation places to start with. And yeah, in the fight at the bottom, Marcus against Mr. Fish. A win for Marcus there, which kind of leaves him a bit of an out. He's only now 4 points behind 7th place, so it keeps his chances alive a bit, but he'll need to keep that going and he'll need to win some more games soon. Otherwise, it'll just, be a bit of a bit of something to look nicer in the end of the table, but it won't actually help him much.
Let's take a look at that table as you speak of it. Yeah, the top 3 all shifting around. Serbikist, Herr Yemeni, and Ollie moving up into the top 3 spots. Kiribati and Niles losing out to that. Geoguessr always struggling around that mid-table position, hopefully looking to improve in the future. But yeah, 5 weeks without a win for Mr. Fish and GRH. Definitely a front 9, so to speak, to forget. They'll be looking to the second half of the season to turn things around here in MTheBassman.
Yeah, looking at this table, I do think the top 3 is still really up for grabs. I think even Geoguessr might have a small shout, but that would also have to mean that Seb, Jameen, and Oli had to drop a lot of points here and there, which I'm not sure if I can see happening. Yeah, I think it's looking kind of grim for the top 3. Like, even if Marcus gets a win here, he's still behind Sky Blue by 1 point. Not even to mention the ones below him. So, yeah, not having much hope for them. But I think other than that, it could still switch around a lot in this table.
Definitely, yeah. Calamity, anything from you here?
We got both Germans now at the top. I'm pretty sure that we'll see one of them in first place come the end of the season. I don't know who out of the two it would be yet, but I don't think that the others will have much of a chance to topple them. It's not a massive points gap or anything yet, just more of a feeling I've got with some of the performances so far. If anyone, I think Ollie is the one who's got the biggest chance, which looks like a very obvious assumption considering, he's in third. And, but, just going by how I've seen them play, what scores they've gotten so far. Other than that, yeah, as we said at the bottom, Marcus keeps a slight chance alive, I think, for Mr. Fish and GRH. I mean, for GRH, kind of looking at his scores, it was over 3 weeks in. But I think for Mr. Fish as well now, almost time to throw in the towel. And yeah, Marcus needs a big improvement in terms of his scores, but he can theoretically still make it happen.
Nice. Well, let's see what they've got in store for each other in the fixtures in Improved World. And yeah, of the two winless players, Bassman, GRH probably with the better chance against Sky Blue. Unfortunately for Mr. Fish, he's up against the undefeated Severkist.
Yeah, I'm not really fancy Mr. Fish's chances against Severkist, who's still who's won everything so far. Yeah, otherwise, I'm actually looking at the Geoguessr, Ollie, and Herjamine Niels games, because if Geoguessr and Niels win their games, they could really shake things up, because then they'd both be beating players in promotion, and they would get back into the promotion fight themselves. So that could be very interesting depending on the outcome. And yeah, I think Kiribati should win that game against Marcus, but again, on our world map, it's a bit more unpredictable in general, so not really much else to say about that, I guess.
Yeah, Calamity, you spoke a bit about Geoguessr and his chances at kind of the beginning of the season. He's sort of not lived up to at least your expectations, and this would definitely be a week to turn it around against Ollie on a world map.
Yeah, definitely. If he manages to win this one, as Bassman said, it puts him in a much better position. The same goes for Niels against Heyemine. Yeah, for Sep, it's a must-win against Mr. Fish, of course. Same goes for Kiribati against Marcus, and Sky Blue against GRH, of course. You said GRH has a better shot. He's so far still not managed to beat his best score this season, which was the score he got when he didn't play, because he got a yellow card, and that meant he couldn't get a more score difference than the worst other score difference of the week. So I don't have any hopes for him, but you never know. But yeah, Geoguessr against Ollie and Heyemine against Niels are definitely the matches to look out for.
This one, very nice. Well, moving over to our final group and Division 5B, those two red cards means our Italian boys get a pass, and it looks from their scores, they definitely enjoyed the vacation in Botswana, taking a bit of a tour and a safari rather than actually trying to figure out where they were in the country. But other than that, a very close matchup between a Troy Blade and Nobend there, Calamity.
Yeah, we kind of had we said that last week, how all of those matches were kind of important in a different way. And Troy definitely with a great win there against Nabend, who did put up another decent score and just got unlucky that, he had to face off against Troy there. Bombadil with his loss against Clemens, that's not a good showing from him, and that'll be pretty tough for him in the table. We'll see in a second. And yeah, Vincenzo against Danny Blondes didn't really bother putting in much effort into this one. That's always the one thing where I'm like, why? Because I can understand not practicing. That's fine. But at least if you're playing the seed, at least put some effort in it. Try and get as many points as you can get. At least for your score difference, because that can matter into the end of the
Definitely.
season. And yeah, Laban Greb with the must win against Xander there to keep his direct promotion spot hopes alive. For Xander himself, that actually puts him out of the top 3, which we kind of assumed like it would be Danny, Laban Greb, and Xander fighting for those 3 places at the start of the season. But he's now in a bit of a worse position for that. And yeah, he might struggle to make it back into there.
Definitely. MTheBassman, Vincenzo and Danny Blonde's not putting up the best scores, but they do keep themselves towards the top of the table. And those 2 veterans definitely showing that they have a chance at trying to get out of Division 5 here.
Yeah, I mean, with the thought of that your opponent is not going to play at all and you just get a free win, then I can understand just, taking a nice day off in the beautiful deserts of Botswana. I don't think they will be too fussed about that unless they really, really want that guaranteed score difference to maybe get into play. But anyway, Laban Greb with a very, very impressive win for Botswana standards. Xander, I rate him quite highly because he also puts up a lot of good scores in other division seats and other competitions. So I think he's definitely not out of the race, but this could definitely be a huge blow for him. Otherwise, didn't really expect Bombadil to lose there. Not sure what happened there. Just got edged out by Clements, who I guess is also a decent player on its own. And Troy just keeping up decent form in his fight for promotion as well.
Very nice. Well, let's take a look at that table. And the pressure isn't quite on these players as it is in 5A with those 2 red cards at the bottom, taking up 2 of the automatic relegation spots. Nabin finds himself, unfortunately, in the last one for that. Clemens, with a win, but still sees himself drop down in the table a bit. Vincenzo with that free win moves up into 4th, but the top 3 stay the same, Calamity.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure if those arrows are correct. They don't seem correct for sure. So you might want to have another look at that. The win from Laban Greb was very important against Xander because that now puts him, he's still 3 points clear of Danny Blondes, but he now has 2 bye weeks coming up. So he's going to be in a very strong position. You can just look at his opponents taking points off of each other for the next 2 weeks. And with any luck, he'll be safe and secure in his first place in 2 weeks after his 2-week holiday, essentially. Behind that, for Troy and Vincenzo, a great week. Vincenzo got a free win, so I guess it was a great week, but he didn't really have to do much for it. That puts them both ahead of Xander. And they're now totally in the fight for promotion here as well, which they might not have expected at the start of the season. Big implications there in the loss for Bombadil. With a win there, he could have still fought for that promotion spot as well. But with that loss, he's now in a relegation fight, and not an easy relegation fight either, because apart from the 2 free bye weeks for Laban Greb, the other 4 people who got red card matches to go are Xander, Clemens, Troy, and Nabend. So no more free points for Bombadil. Any points he will want to get, he'll have to get the hard way. And with everyone around him still getting some free points added on, he might be in for a very rough time in the last 4 weeks.
Definitely. MTheBassman, any thoughts on this Division 5B table?
Laban Greb, I think with the form he's in, I think he will definitely at least remain in the top 3. Other than that, I think it's still quite up for grabs. Even if Clements and Bombadil get another win in there, they could theoretically still get in there. But I'm a bit surprised by Vincenzo being this high. I think he was around mid-table in the previous season, but I'm not sure. I do think Xander could still be one to look out for, definitely in the promotion fight.
Yeah, he was 5th last season, so he's just about equaled where he was in the last one there. So Yeah, not too bad from him there. Well, that wraps it. Oh, we have the matchups for next week. We're not done quite yet. I'm tired. Yeah, we've got a couple noteworthy matches here. Danny Blondes and Troy up against each other towards the top of that table, Calamity. And as you mentioned, Xander and Labangreb getting their bye weeks. So at least Labangreb won't be losing his winning streak this week.
Yeah, you almost didn't think it possible, sort of like 2-3 weeks in, maybe 4 weeks in, that Danny Blondes could actually be in any danger of dropping out of those promotion spots. But that's now a real possibility. He's only 2 points ahead of fifth, and with a match against the direct competitor in Troy here, if he loses this match, it's actually pretty likely that, well, not only pretty likely, it's guaranteed that he won't be in the top 3 anymore because Sander gets his bonus points against the red carded One Weird Girl. And that could make the end of the season really interesting because everyone's still relatively close together here, especially from second down to fifth. Of course, Bombadil against Nabend will be a very important matchup too for the relegation fight. Bombadil really needs to win that. I think if Bombadil doesn't win this game, he's almost secured in last in quotation marks, in 8th place, because then Nabend will get his bonus points as well for the red card game, and Bombadil will be pretty much 4 points behind. Yeah, and he would need some fantastic performances in the other weeks if he wants to catch up at that point.
Very nice. Yeah, MTheBassman, anything that you are looking forward to in these matchups in Division 5B?
Yeah, the pretty obvious standout here is, of course, Troy versus Danny. That will have very big implications for the rest of the season. Especially when Xander and Labangreb both have their 3 wins. The pressure's on for those 2 players, really, to keep up the pace. Yeah, in terms of relegation, Bombadil and Nabend definitely an important one for both of them. And with a win, Vincenzo could also really get in with a shout for top 3. So yeah, again, big games for a lot of these players.
Very nice. Well, we wish everybody the best of luck in their world matchups in the next week, as we will take a look at the map to finish us up here. It is by Wolf Trekker, average score of just over 16,500, 50,000 plus locations. So repeats, not very likely. Actually, we have the exact number here. We got 80,000 of them. So yeah, definitely no repeats. And it's been played close to 80,000 times as well. Quite a popular one, Calamity. I'll give you first shot at it's a world map, not too much you can practice or talk about here, except just kind of relearn your world meta again.
Yeah, it's just a world map, and it there's nothing much you can really say about this. It's a world map like any other. If you've played Diverse World, if you've played any other normal world map that doesn't have a theme, as you said, you're not gonna get any repeats normally unless you play like the map 100,000 times or get really lucky. So anything you can really do, the most you can really do is just play a couple of world maps until you're like sort of confident, and then just go into it. I don't think I played any practice games save for the other division seeds. So, just a standard world map. That's a nice thing for a change, right?
Yeah, definitely not too bad. Does put your world knowledge to the test. Make sure you know those flags, languages, architecture, and whatnot. Yeah, in the basement, any tips or recommendations you would have for players playing just a general world map?
Well, I do have to say that I did quite a few practice seats on this map, and I did notice a few things. One, that Philippines and New Zealand came up a lot for some reason. And second, that it's actually a bit more rural than a diverse world. Again, that might just be because of the seats I got. But yeah, I think in that aspect, it might be slightly more difficult. But in general, on a world map, yeah, I think what helps is just if you have a lot of experience with just playing through countries, like, for example, played a lot of countries in Explorer mode, which did really help in some countries, like, for example, Botswana, even if I lost. I got a lot of previous knowledge from doing that in Explorer mode. And yeah, just play a lot. And and find some strategies for certain countries. Like if you know that you're in like for example Thailand, or Cambodia, just look for road markers that that can indicate places that you might know. Stuff like that. It's mostly just practice, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think if you can practice a world map, it's not practicing obviously the world, but working on those countries where you're weakest. Like I know I'm not that good in Africa, or there's this, I just can never figure out Mexico or something like that. Then practice those individual countries. Make sure, hey, can I tell the difference between this country and another country? If I'm in this country that I don't like, can I figure out some of those major towns? Maybe refresh your memory a bit, and that can definitely help. That's what I usually do if I have to kind of in quotation marks practice a world map. But other than that, yeah, it's kind of a nice week just to go play, not have to worry about memorizing town names, intersections, and okay, what's the coverage like in the northeast part of the country versus the southwest or something like that. So it really is a nice one. And yeah, and hopefully we won't have too many delays, people with needing extensions, and so we'll be able to have all the results for you right away after the deadline for that. But yeah, well, thank you all for watching. It has been a great look at Botswana, and yeah, we all can't wait for the improved world map this coming week. Wish you all the best of luck, and we will see you next time. Take care.
Bye.
See you.